Go.
Oh, shit.
Now what?
Welcome into Sports Around the Bar a little bit later, but we're here, Drew. We're here now. We're ready to talk a ton of sports and have a good time while doing it. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We got a lot going on, man. You just heard the Brady news yourself a couple minutes ago.
I did. Like, what? You know what? You know what we shouldn't do is take a week off because we are so not ready for this.
I know. It feels like we haven't done this before ever. And this is every time we take any time off. It's like brand new podcast, brand new us. We're glad that you get a chance to get to know us.
Tech is down.
Oh, yeah. Hey,
everything's down.
Why, is something not working?
No, we're just having problems with tech earlier.
I got to get on the horn, yeah. Well, anyway, man, we have a lot to talk about today. From Tom Brady's new contract with Fox is going to wind up paying him more than he ever made playing football, ironically, over the next 10 years to be a broadcaster, as well as our takes on the 2022 draft. We're going to talk about who did the best, who did the worst. We're going to go through all of that and more with your guys' questions. So thank you guys so much for stopping in. Let's start with Brady, though, man. Let's start with this new crazy contract. And let me ask you this first, because when I read this, it didn't surprise me at all. I was like, this is just going to be the new normal. Do you think this is just going to be the trend that we're always seeing now, that any high-profile quarterback retires and immediately they're getting the bag thrown at them to be in the booth? I mean, we've seen it with Drew Brees. We've seen it with Tony Romo. Brady's the next one. We've had both of the Mannings. Is this just the status quo now from now on, that everybody's going to move straight into the booth as soon as they're done being a quarterback?
I mean, it's a possibility. I don't blame anyone. I mean, they did call me first. Fox called me. I turned it down. I said, add a couple more zeros and maybe I'll cancel all my previous arrangements. But, you know.
You don't get out of bed for less than 400, right? That 375 didn't cut it.
Doesn't work. Yeah, I think it is. I mean, you're talking about quarterback position. You know, obviously probably the brightest minds on the football field at a single time, maybe outside of some amazing safeties. But yeah, they want a guy that can analyze the game. And as much as people don't like Tony Romo, he is one of the better guys to listen to.
He might be a better analyst than he was ever a quarterback. And I think he was a good quarterback is the thing. That wasn't a slam on Tony Romo. I mean, he kind of revolutionized the booth a little bit. You see, it became a thing, like something to go see with the Romo game, where you said, man, Tony Romo is going to be on this game. I'm glad that he's calling my game or anything else. I mean, maybe you get a little tired of him calling all those Chief games because he's literally on there, it seems like, every week with them. Yeah. But forever, the primetime game was the one they put Tony Romo on, and it was almost like having another primetime game at 3:30, where you said, we just have a crew that's so much better because Romo did such a good job. Are we getting that out of Brady? Is he that kind of guy?
I mean, he's got a podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, he actually, I think he does like an hour on Sirius Radio and NFL.com every day. I mean, he is already in the media, so is he going to be amazing? I don't know. I mean, Tom Brady's kind of stuck up a lot, actually, not kind of, a lot.
But he's got the built-in following already, like you said, with the podcast. He's had plenty of success on the field. We've seen it work with Manning and the Manning cast. I mean, they only did,
actually
8
pretty
or 10
good.
of those. I know. Yeah, and wouldn't it be good with Brady in the booth for 3 hours, sitting there picking apart defenses, telling you where everything went wrong? He said, oh, he missed his check down guy right there. No, I'm kidding.
Do you think
Wes Welker's open right 3 yards away from me?
He threw that past the 20. I don't do that unless it's Randy Moss out there. B's, good to see you, man. Glad you're here. I don't hate it. I don't blame anybody. I mean, he definitely took some team-friendly deals for a very long time. He married a very rich woman, so he didn't have to worry about money. And now he's looking at it like, hey, I'm ready to get paid. And I'm sure the bidding war was nuts.
I imagine it was, absolutely. But 10 years, $375 million. There were estimates that came out that said he's probably made somewhere around $312 to $315 million worth of just playing money. Obviously, there's endorsements in there, too, that you'll never be able to track because you'll never know what those numbers are. But he made about $312 to $315 million actually playing in the NFL. Isn't it wild that for half the time he's making more, like $50 million more on that TV contract than he is actually playing the game he's going to be talking about? Or is that just the NFL is so much more popular now, even than 2003 when he came along?
Does it shock me? Is that what you're saying?
Does it shock you at all? No, nothing at all that he's going to make more in 10 years doing broadcasting.
No, not really.
I mean, that just shows us, man, we picked the right career choice. We could have been NFL players. Here we are, broadcasters.
Could have been, but we said no. Well, I don't think so. You got to think 20 years ago when he started playing in the NFL, money was just different. And there's no doubt NFL is a lot more popular now. And you're talking about quarterbacks making it upwards to $50 million a year. Tom Brady never made that. And
sure.
And I don't, Tom Brady played now for another 20 years. Obviously, the money would change on the broadcasting side, but it probably wouldn't be the same.
Maybe, and I will say this, though. As much as we want to say, oh, well, he's not going to make that $50 million that Aaron Rodgers is going to make this year and everything else, he didn't have to, and he didn't want to. He always was the guy that said, I will take less to get a better team around me because I want to win.
Yeah.
And now it seems like more guys are chasing the money, and who knows? Obviously, that's got a lot to do with success because if you can save money there and you can put a better team around a guy that's just as good as any other quarterback that he's going to have to play against, if not better, good things are going to happen for your football team. So maybe
Absolutely.
we start to see a few of these quarterbacks take that Brady vein and say, listen, I don't need to. I want to win. I don't need to be paid 50 if 35 gets the job done.
Martavius, good to see you. He says he called the Falcons taking Ritter.
I did too, and for a different reason. Just because he's that Marcus Mariota clone, that it seems like that is the best sort of comparison for anybody's game is Marcus Mariota. So the fact that the Falcons took Desmond Ritter didn't shock me. Where they took him shocked me a lot. I thought they might even fall into the trap of taking him at 8. But they managed to hold off. They waited to, the third round to make that happen? So props to them for still getting what seemed to be their guy, but having the wherewithal to wait and get him at a value pick instead.
Richard, good to see you. He says he hopes that Tom Brady is not another Mean Joe Green as a commentator.
I mean, he's got his own podcast, so it's not like Fox is going into this blind. You said it yourself. We
Right.
have some evidence.
Of him being in the media.
Right, exactly. So you know a little bit of what you're going to get. Is it going to be different if he's there for 3 hours? Maybe, but...
I'm literally racking my brain just to think if I ever watched Mean Joe Green as a commentator. That must have been before my time, or I was too young to remember.
I was going to say, I was before my time, too.
I know I've seen it, like replays of it, but I don't know if I ever watched a live game with him commentating.
We're just showing our age right now, or lack thereof.
I mean, I'm not young, but I sure don't remember it. I don't know. I don't remember it.
Last point here, Drew, and then we'll move off of Brady. We'll start talking about some of these drafts here.
Yeah.
Is this something that, again, you're going to see
Yes.
2, 3, 4 broadcasts for each of these networks where it's all quarterbacks all the time, and it's only quarterback?
No.
Or is this something where we're going to open it up a little bit, and maybe it's Troy Polamalu who lands a spot, or one of these guys that has a little bit of personality in the secondary? I mean, we've seen Ray Lewis on TV, but he hasn't really gotten like that Sunday Night Football, really.
Yeah, no. I don't think it will just be like NFL.
I think he's actually getting one this year, though. I think Ray Lewis is in one of the partnerships, so...
I don't ever think you're going to see like a full like former NFL broadcasting. I don't think that because you still kind of have your like, not the color guys, but your play-by-play guys. Those are usually not your NFL players usually. So no, I don't think you ever see that, but I do think it's common. Yeah, I think it's going to be like this for a long time. I mean, talk about the people that know the game the most, the people that played it. So if it's not a coach, then it's a player.
And Richard goes on to say he lasted 8 games and sucked. It won't be that bad when it's 10 years worth of contract. There is no way they're getting rid of Brady before 7. But then again, I said that about John Gruden, and as it turns out, he didn't make it all the way to the end of 10 either.
Had nothing to do with his coaching.
Had something to do with his emails. But
Nothing
unless
else.
they find out some emails that Tom Brady sent that they're like, ooh, got to get rid of you now, I don't think there's going to be any way they get out of that contract before year 7, year 8. Like, they're in it for the long haul now.
Yeah.
And the fact that they paid him more even than Romo is making on a per-year basis, yeah, Fox is 100% tied to Tom Brady for not even the foreseeable future, for the next decade. So, yeah, that is 100% going to be the case.
Richard also says he would love to see Andrew Whitworth as a commentator. You know what? He is a very well-spoken man.
I agree. a bunch of experience, too. You're getting a 40-year-old man in the booth. Same thing with Brady. It's the experience moving in. No 35-year-old punks like Tony Romo coming in, and you don't know if you can trust him or not. That's funny. But
Ray asked, what do we think about the Manning cast?
I like it, but I wish they would focus less on guests and focus a little bit more on the game. Even if it was them telling jokes about anything going on, I would rather Eli and Peyton just kind of like watch the game and comment more on that instead of like how it kind of derails itself a little bit when they're talking about every guest that's changing every 20 minutes.
Yeah, but it's not really commentating on the game. It's I believe that Peyton's probably writing his stuff for the majority of it, but
or somebody is. Yeah.
Actually, Peyton Manning's pretty funny, man.
I think he's a funny guy too. But
so it's written. Even if he wrote it, it's written. Can they sit there and broadcast the game? Yes, I think they absolutely could. But this is kind of
I'm not saying it needs to be like broadcast where it's the two of them like, hey, welcome in, like we're doing right now. That it doesn't need to be that.
What game are we doing?
What game's on? Oh, yeah. Let's turn the USFL reruns on.
Yeah.
But, no, I don't think it's one of those things that I need it to be like a typical spot in the booth where they're both standing in front of the screen watching the game, talking about everything going on. But I think it would be better if it was just the two of them focused on talking and maybe just bring it back to the game a little bit. I think it wanders too much for my taste. I like watching it once in a while. I mean, I usually watch with the regular game on mute half the time anyway because commentary half the time you're like, yeah, I've had enough of that.
I usually just Google it and watch it like completely outside of it, like, oh, I knew it happened, so I went back and looked at it.
Yeah,
I don't.
And that's exactly why Tom Brady's getting a $375 million contract to do this stuff.
Commercials, halftime, are either me getting a beer, me going to the bathroom and getting a beer, or me getting a beer. Like, that's literally about it during, like, breaks and all that kind of stuff. I don't really do anything else.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I will say this. The Manning cast is still quality entertainment. I still like watching it, but I don't think it's just 100% better than watching the regular broadcast for the entire game. I like to watch it for a while, and then I kind of get tired of it when they bring, like, LeBron James on and they're talking about, like, nothing that has anything to do with the game, and it's just kind of on in the background.
Yeah.
All I have to do is say LeBron, whatever. Not even LeBron. It can be, like, Nick Saban. It can be even Russell Wilson, and they're not talking about anything. They're just, like, talking about stuff they have going on with their lives while, like, there's this small screen in the corner that I'm also trying to watch. So, I like it, but I like it in small doses. Yep. Is the long answer to that question.
I like to watch it when there's nothing else on.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some draft class here because we want to go and break down who had their best day, who had their worst day. Now that we're a week or so removed, we've had some time to digest. Let's talk about, who do you want to start with? Winners or losers, Drew?
I mean, you always want to start with winners, right?
Usually you do. Well, let's start from the bottom. I'm going to start with an honorable mention.
Oh.
I'm breaking
bottom of the winners?
Bottom of the winners list.
Oh, I was like, why'd you even ask me if you're going to go the opposite?
No, we got to keep the suspense.
I had an idea the whole entire time, but I'm going to ask you, and you said the wrong answer.
Wrong answer. But no, let's start. Got to keep the people in suspense, So let's start from the bottom. The top 5 draft classes. We're actually starting with 6 with the winners because I didn't feel right.
You couldn't get away.
Leaving out a team like Detroit. So for me, coming in at number 6, Detroit gets an honorable mention because of how crafty they were. Not only did they have a lot to spend, and I think that's what you have to look at when you're talking about who had the best draft class. Not just what did they have going into the day, because if that was the case, teams like Indianapolis, teams like the Rams, they would be afterthoughts. They'd always get D's and F's and everything else. And a lot of people who grade mock drafts, or not mock drafts, but actual drafts, look at teams that traded away their first-round pick, and it's always a D. Well, they didn't get the best players. Well, no kidding. They didn't have any picks to go and get those guys. You have to look at what they did with what they had. And I think when you look at Detroit, even though they had both of those first-round picks, when you're talking about them landing Aiden Hutchinson, who most people have as the consensus number 1 edge rusher, and then Jamison Williams, a guy that receivers a little bit more black, or not as black and white, where there's a lot more shades of gray on what you like and what you don't and everything else. Jamison Williams is still consistently on the top of people's boards, and if he didn't tear his ACL, in my opinion, would have been the number 1 receiver this year. The fact that they got both of those guys, I know they had to trade up to get Williams, they've already hit a home run, I think, with those two. But it kind of continues when you talk about them bringing in Josh Paschal as well, defensive end out of Kentucky. Probably a name most people aren't familiar with, but this dude, when it comes to power rushing, is going to be a guy that can play 3 technique and D tackle. He's going to be able to come out on early downs and play that run-stuffing defensive end. Tons of versatility there. I think when you look at everything they've done here, they had a very solid top end of their draft, and it wouldn't be right of me to just say, to not at least mention it, because when was the last time I said, man, Detroit killed the draft, man? Love everything they did. It's been a minute, right?
Yeah, I'm trying
Normally
to think.
they're drafting T.J. Hawkinson with like number 8 overall, and I'm about to pull my hair out.
I like that pick.
I like T.J. Hawkinson. I don't like him at number 8.
That he would not be in blue and silver if it wasn't for that.
We don't have to dig up dead bodies. But let's just say Detroit doesn't always go in a direction I like. In this case, I will say I think Detroit did a wonderful job of at least maximizing their top picks when it comes to the first couple rounds.
Sorry, Richard. Frank, good to see you, man. Richard says he's getting the Packers an A- for the draft pick. Talking about Detroit. Their first pick, the second overall pick with Aiden Hutchinson. I said it before, I'm going to say it again. When you saw that draft room go nuts and high-fiving each other, probably the most excited draft room we saw during the draft, you knew they got their number one guy at the board. And when you grade something like that, even if that player doesn't turn out being great, when your board goes, this is the best player, if we get him, we won the draft, that's what happened, and they got him. So you have to, in my opinion, rank the – regardless of what the Lions do afterwards, which I still think they did the right thing, they won the draft in the sense of what they could do. Like you were saying, just because you don't have a lot of draft picks doesn't mean you can't draft well.
Right.
So when they get the number one guy, they obviously draft well. But then you go back and you look, take all the names out of it. You look at the positions. They did one wide receiver and one tight end. What was the issue last year with Detroit? They did not have receiving weapons. I kind of like that idea. They had a receiver, arguably the best receiver in the draft, and they had a tight end that's going to help kind of put up 2 receiver sets. That it's huge in the NFL if you can do that. And then they focused on their bleeding from every orifice defense, and they added a ton of players there, defensive linemen, linebackers, and even to a back end. So that's huge. I mean, I know you're going to focus on the players. That's what you want to do. But like you said, if you don't have a lot of draft picks, you pick what's the best available at that time and what you need.
And Detroit was blessed that they had that second first-rounder. You know,
Yes.
they had managed to make a good play. I know all it cost them was trading Stafford away, who won a Super Bowl. You know, no big deal. But they maximized at least what they got in return. How often do we see teams come in and just flub those picks when they get those extra first-rounders? I think they did well. Jameson Williams, the big question is he going to stay healthy? Because if he does, I mean, you've got a great speed wide receiver and arguably the guy who handles the speed best in this class. That is a rare thing.
Yeah.
So I think Detroit did absolutely well. To me, they're still kind of an honorable mention. They didn't quite make the top 5, but they were just outside that I had to put them there.
Hey, man, it's just an ACL. Most people
Exactly.
come back from those and even better than they were before. Richard says he knows it's not football, but he said sorry about the Preds.
Yeah, me too, because was that like the worst hockey you've ever seen in your life? I'm sorry everybody had to watch it. So sorry my city embarrassed you or embarrassed the league with what they put up there for Colorado. So
Avalanche is like one of the best teams in the league.
yeah, and they sucked for a long time to get there. They paid their dues.
Oh,
so,
100%.
Yeah, I mean, when you lose your Vezina candidate goalie right going into the playoffs, you knew nothing good was going to happen in Nashville.
No.
Yeah, but anyway, water under the bridge. Let's talk about a couple more of these comments here. Somebody was saying the Steelers got an A-. They didn't make my list.
No, the Packers.
I did see Steelers, but I saw someone was asking about the Packers too.
I got nothing on the Steelers there, man.
Also, Richard wants to know if the USFL has reached 10,000 spectators in the stands yet. Probably not. Probably not. Right here. Richard says Steelers A-. Let me go on to we'll talk about them really quick.
Oh, that's so cool that I don't have that.
Yeah, I mean, classic Facebook, right? Works so well. But anyway, let me say this about them. It all kind of hinges on if Kenny Pickett's any good or not. He was my number 1 quarterback.
He was.
I had him somewhere right around the 20s, so I can't criticize him too hard.
Being picked at 20.
I gave him a B- when I did my grades. They didn't make this list. They were a little too low on it. Again, Kenny Pickett, you're really rolling the dice. In a year where everybody said these quarterbacks suck, the Steelers were the only team that said we'll take a guy before the 3rd round. So if they're right, we're going to look back and say, man, they were geniuses. They saw it. And I like Kenny Pickett. I think he's got good accuracy. I think that's going to be his biggest strength. I hate this comparison, but I'd say he's like a less talented Drew Brees. And that's just so much to hang on a guy's shoulders because as soon as he's not Drew Brees, everyone's like, yeah, see, you were wrong. But at the very least, they got their guy, and they weren't afraid to do it. And they looked at Mitch Trubisky and said, we're not going into next year with this roster.
Did they get their guy or did they settle for a guy?
Well, the rumors were all they wanted Malik Willis. But, you know, you got to take the guy to Pittsburgh. We're trying to sell some tickets here, Drew.
You know, just looking at your board, what I see is 2 quarterbacks, 2 receivers, a linebacker, a defensive end, and a fullback. So where is the struggle that Pittsburgh had last year?
Blocking, offensive line.
Yeah, where is that on that board?
Oh, well, they paid all their bad offensive linemen. Haven't you heard?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's a problem.
They're literally nowhere is fixed. Two wide receivers. If anything, the strongest thing they had last year was great wide receivers. I know they lost Juju, so it makes sense to grab somebody else, but they went and grabbed two of them. Pickens should have been enough, right?
Can you ever have enough receivers in today's league?
Yeah, when you're Pittsburgh.
Yes, when you have 8.
When you have literally 4 deep, you're probably fine.
I'll buy that a little bit. And I'm not crazy about DeMarvin Leal either. He's another one of those tweeners that didn't really have the strength, I think, to really play D-tackle, but he doesn't have the speed and the burst to play edge. So he's one of those guys that I'm just not really sure how it's going to work out at the next level. Obviously, they saw enough in him to take a third-round pick on him, but wasn't that crazy about it. I like Calvin Austin, but, man, you're talking about size. Just like you said, you're not really loving these receivers. He's a guy that is pigeonholed into playing the slot. He's like 5'7", 5'8", like 170 pounds, Drew. Like, you are really pushing the boundaries on a guy that's too small to play in the NFL. And you're really going to have to pigeonhole him into one of those roles where he's either a slot receiver or he's not a whole lot.
Yeah. To go on further about it, because Ray says, well, they fixed their offensive line through free agency. They signed Mason Cole, James Daniels, and they re-signed James Daniels. Sorry, re-signed him. Sorry. So they picked up Mason Cole and then re-signed James Daniels.
And none of those guys really excite you is the problem. If I remember right, he came from the Bears, who, again, not exactly notable powerhouse in the offensive line. They've had their own problems. Yeah, I look at the team, and still the weakness last year is going to be the weakness this year, which is Kenny Pickett going to have the time to throw and does he have the ability to avoid the rush? I'm less concerned I'm less convinced that they will. I think that's still going to be a problem, and probably what holds them back in what's one of the best divisions in football is just the offensive line isn't going to be able to hold up long term for a guy that can't run, and that's why a lot of people said they should take Malik Willis instead because he's going to be able to buy the time with his legs. Personally, I have never been the guy that says, man, I love the quarterback who can't really accurately throw the ball down the field. That's always been a big red flag for me, taking a quarterback. So I get why they took Pickett because he's the best at delivering the football. The question is, have they done enough to protect him, or is this going to look like Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr with no protection?
I don't want to talk bad about Mason because I don't really – I need to look into him. Where did Mason come from? He said the Bears?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's not like bringing in someone like your top end – like a Tooney last year for the Kansas City Chiefs. When they brought in a great guard from the Patriots, brought him in. It literally kind of changed it. Orlando Brown. I know I could bring up Chiefs all day long. I'm trying not to.
Was it Olakun too that they signed their tackle? I don't remember what his name is. Anyway,
my point is like
we're getting into the weeds talking about offensive linemen here.
It's so hard. It's not like they went there and reevaluated their whole entire offensive line. They re-signed a guy they already had and picked up one guy, maybe another guy. Who knows? But you're not sitting. There's an issue. The issue is you need to go young there, and you need to start rebuilding your offensive line. Now you got a young rookie quarterback who's going to be running for his life behind a terrible offensive line. I do not think this fixed the offensive line.
Well, let me stay on the winners here because I want to talk about Bruce's comment here. He said the Seahawks solid C-. I disagree. I actually have them number 5 on my list, beating out Detroit, and let me tell you why.
You know what's awesome is I don't have any of those.
Well, I mean, maybe we're just getting like a billion comments, and some of them are just going off in the voids, too.
Guys, sorry if we miss you.
Absolutely. It's probably Facebook's fault. Could be our fault. We don't know what we're doing either. Like, let's be honest.
I need to get drunk.
Let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks, though, because getting Charles Cross at number 9 overall, you're getting the best pass protector in this draft class who's still a solid run defender. That is left tackle through and through. When there was one guy in this group that you said he is the plug-and-play left tackle, it's Charles Cross. Boye Mafe at number 2, another quality guy that when we talked about, man, there's so many of these defensive ends, he is right in the mix. Probably that 5th, 6th, 7th defensive end to come off the board where tons of talent, got all the size, everything else. He's still a bit of a project coming out of Minnesota, but he's still a guy that has tremendous upside to play defensive end on, let's face it, a defense that is just needing any kind of talent they can bring in. After that, Kenneth Walker III, everyone gets tired seeing the Seahawks taking these running backs, but they are one of the best running offenses, and to me, they got the best running back off the board in this draft, a guy who can catch, a guy whose one-cut ability is insane. He's got the speed to hit the home run. He's got everything you want. He is a guaranteed.
And hopefully he can stay healthy.
Absolutely. I don't want to say a guaranteed starter because it's the Seahawks and like 48 people like run the ball in and out every season. But still, great running back. And then Abraham Lucas, when you're talking about them scooping a third-round offensive tackle that has the talent that Lucas has, there's a very good chance he's going to wind up being a starter week 1 if he can wind up winning the job in Seattle. I think it's a great risk to take. Obviously, when you get that deep in the draft, there's probably not a lot of guys who are going to see the field week 1. I think Lucas is one of the guys who can and is a great pick at offensive line. So they've just nailed their top 4 picks. When you're talking about having a first, 2 seconds, and a third, and all 4 of those picks are good picks, you had a great draft regardless of what else happens. But then Kobe Bryant, cornerback out of Cincinnati, he won like what was it, not the FCS, but the non-Power 5 cornerback of the year over Ahmad Gardner. They gave it to Kobe Bryant, and they wound up getting this guy in the 4th round. I think that's a great move. I know he doesn't have the athleticism that you want to see out of an NFL corner, but he is a guy that's production has made it worth it, especially playing across from Sauce Gardner, where everyone said, we're not throwing over there. For Cincinnati to have all the success that they had is because he stepped up and did a good job. Hopefully he's a learn-in candidate for Seattle as well. Taking Tariq Woolen, another cornerback that, I'll be honest with you, Drew, this one's a little bit more of a project, okay? I'm singing all their praises, but this one is a bit of a project. But he's 6'4". He ran like a 4.28. He's a converted, I think he was wide receiver that had converted from quarterback before that to corner.
It's because he can't catch or what?
Well, he can't catch. That is also very true.
No,
but
that's why he's a corner.
You're taking a risk here. But when we're talking about the 5th round and you get a guy that runs a 4.28 and he's 6'4", those guys always go like 2nd round to the Raiders. Like where was Mark Davis?
He's not as...
He was asleep at the wheel. Nobody showed him the combine data this year. I think they did great. You go past that, there's not a whole lot to really love. Bo Melton, Derek Young, Tyreek Smith, none of those guys really pop off the page at you. I know Tyreek Smith went to Ohio State. I don't see it with him. But still, when you're talking about 5th round and later, those are shots in the dark. Those are darts you're throwing at the board that if one of those 3 stick, you're saying, hey, we did pretty well. So I think the Seahawks did absolutely well. Or I think they had the 5th best draft in the league. So to say they're C-, man, I think that's a little harsh.
Well, you don't have a quarterback of the future in this draft, in my opinion, or yours. So you are going to build everything else.
So why fall into the trap?
Right. So you're going to build everything around it. You grabbed an offensive lineman who you believe in so much that you get rid of Dwayne Brown. I know you weren't going to pay that contract, but still, you let him go because that was an issue. You needed someone to play left tackle.
And the rebuild is on, right?
Right, yeah. 100%. But you felt good enough to let Brown walk out the door across. Right there's a great thing. And then your next thing, you need a pass rush. You have an issue there, you go out and get a pass rusher. And you know, it's kind of funny. Even though we might not see these receivers kind of fall, what about all the rumors with Seahawks possibly trading away DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett, which I never saw that happening.
I thought about talking about that today.
But what if it goes away and they sit there in their 7th round and they grab 2 receivers back-to-back? I mean, again, take away names, talk about just positions alone. I don't really hate this draft for the Seahawks.
I mean, it's definitely insurance in case next year comes up and you got to franchise DK Metcalf and trade him because he won't sign the long-term deal. Right. So it's that shot in the dark that, hey, maybe we like Bo Melton, maybe we like Derek Young. But I'll be honest with you, I didn't scout Derek Young a whole lot out of Lenore-Rhyne College. What? You know, I missed that tape, man. I
literally run that college out in my backyard.
You might. You honestly might. So. I think when you look at the Seahawks, throw all those late picks out, they killed it, man. They killed it. Yeah. They had a great draft for what they had and what they were able to bring in.
Not top 5. I'm not going to say top 5.
You don't think top 5?
No.
Okay.
Maybe top 10.
I liked it. I liked it a lot.
You have it in your top 5?
I do. They're number 5.
Wow.
You have a C-.
I thought you were just I don't listen to you. I thought you were just talking about it because he said a C-.
No, I mean, I started there and I kind of pivoted, because that's what we do as broadcasters. We see something, we see that through line, and we kind of take it. He said C- tonight. I disagree, man. This, to me, I'd say this is an A-. Like, all those first 4 picks, you had 2 second-rounders, a third, and a first. I know it's number 9. I know tackle is not sexy in the top 10. But let's face it, if they're going to rebuild it in Seattle with Pete Carroll there, you got to get the offensive line rolling so we can run the ball 24/7. Yes. Especially if Drew Lock is going to be our quarterback. We're fixing this offensive line. They did that, I think, with these tackles. On top of that, you got a good D-end. You got a good running back. I know it was the 2nd round, but I don't care. I think Kenny Walker is good enough that it does not matter. At some point, when you get a special player, it doesn't matter where they're coming from. And without Kenny Walker, Michigan State doesn't beat Michigan this year. And everyone knows what Michigan did. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, Jim Harbaugh took them to took them to the national championship playoffs, everything else. The only loss they had, they didn't lose to Ohio State. They lost to Michigan State because of what Kenny Walker was able to do to them.
You're not supposed to pause when I'm drinking a beer. What really blew my mind, Bobby Wagner's gone. No linebacker taken in this draft. So they believe in these young guys they already have.
Or it's UDFA season. You never know. Sometimes you got to bring in those undrafted guys, Drew.
They believe in Jordan Brooks. They believe in Joel Ligabunwai. That's not how you say it. And Artie Burns. They believe in him.
Mm-hmm. It's not a premium position. And let's face it, this roster needs premium positions like they need air to breathe, Drew. I mean, their whole offensive line, there's not a single name on there that's household. It's been a problem for years with Russell Wilson. Arguably, it's the reason he wanted out.
Yeah.
And now, all of a sudden, you're addressing it. You're saying, okay, that was a problem. Our franchise quarterback told us to kick rocks because we didn't protect him well enough. Let's not have that happen again. We have our next franchise quarterback in Drew Lock. Let's protect him. That was a joke. But that last part was a joke. But still, it's got to start somewhere.
I got them at 4 wins, maybe 5.
When you draft that guy next year, you don't want to go into it saying, oh, man, what are we going to do with the offensive line? Because you're still going to need a couple of interior positions. Better, instead, to go take a couple offensive linemen now and see if they develop instead of having to throw some rookies into the fire and see what sticks like your Jacksonville.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, again, don't hate this draft class, and I don't think that they did anything wrong. It's just there wasn't the guy of the future there. You had to say what was said. I'm getting lost. I don't see any of these comments.
Your grandma says hi. You missed that comment, too.
Hi, Grandma. Love you.
We'll move on, though.
Yes.
I only have a few of them, too, so it might be Facebook messing up on the other end, too. It's okay. We're glad for everyone that we could see, and for everyone that we can't, guys, keep them rolling in because it might be something on Facebook's end that we're not seeing everything. So we appreciate you throwing all those comments to us. Let's talk about number 4. Only because I had to make things difficult, go with 6 instead of 5.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't decide between Detroit and Seattle.
It's fine.
Let's talk about the Jets.
Let's do it.
There's a reason that when you have all those first-round picks, everybody gives you the A+. But let me say this. When you don't screw those picks up, you got to at least give them credit for it. The Jets went into this draft with 4 and 10. They wound up trading up to 26 as well to get Jermaine Johnson, defensive end. Let's go through the whole draft because I don't want to sell him short here.
Let's do it.
When you start at number 4 and you go out and get what, in my opinion, is the best man coverage corner guy in the draft in Sauce Gardner, it's already a home run because corner is so hard to draft. When you go out and get a stud, a superstar at corner, this is the risk that you want to take because when it hits and you get a Jalen Ramsey and you can take one of the other opposing receivers, star receivers off the board, there's just nothing like it. I don't know if Sauce is that guy. I don't know if he's ever going to reach that height, the Jalen Ramsey hype that everybody else seems to be putting out there. But if you get a very good corner, and it literally, how many NFL games come down to one play? That's the guy who makes the play, and you go home unhappy because he swatted the ball away from your receiver. So if the Jets bring that in at number 4, if that's all they get, the guy who makes that one play, they did a damn good job at number 4.
No, they definitely.
Darn good job at number 4.
You've got children watching, man.
Sorry, I know. Nurseries everywhere, all around the country, want to hear my take on how the Jets are doing. But we said we weren't going to swear. I apologize about that. Still, Sauce Gardner at number 4, I think is a fantastic pick. I gave it an A+ because it's one of those things like, yeah, you just didn't screw it up when you had the chance to. And when it comes to the Jets, that's always a bit of a question mark.
So, not to go off of Sauce Gardner, but we talked about this a little bit yesterday when we were like pre-gaming the show, and I brought this up, and I want to bring it up again. When was the last time some team drafted 3 first-round draft picks, and if that ever happened, because I don't remember it happening, did it ever work out?
You stumped me then, and you stumped me now because I didn't look up the answer to that. The answer is it doesn't happen often.
No, it definitely doesn't.
And
I'm actually going to look it up now because I'm interested.
Well, I'll stall while you do that. One thing that makes drafting 3 guys in the first round not lucrative is all of those guys are probably going to be coming off a contract in the same time period. So it really puts a crunch on your salary cap when you have all these top drafted players coming off. Like, let's say they all hit like you expect them to and you want them to. You now have to decide who gets paid between Jermaine Johnson, Garrett Wilson, and Sauce Gardner because all 3 of those guys, all 3 of those positions are going to be looking for big money. Now, is that how the NFL works? No. You're going to have some of these guys bounce out. Not everyone is going to wind up being the star that you expect when you draft them. But if they do all hit, it's almost a disadvantage to have to pay all these guys at the same time because you're going to have to let them walk. You're not going to be able to go give out 3 of the biggest contracts if there's any other talent on this roster at all.
Wow, there's a lot more than I thought there was. That doesn't make sense. Hold on. So the first one are the Browns when they got Garrett, Peppers, and Njoku. Mm-hmm. I guess that kind of worked out a little bit, right?
Yeah, Myles Garrett, obviously best defensive end in football. You got to love that. Jabril Peppers, hit or miss. They kind of got rid of him.
He's gone.
Yeah, but he's still in the NFL. He's still making an impact. Who was the other guy out of that draft class?
Njoku.
Oh, well, another guy that, yeah, I guess he's a hit. Like, they just franchised him, right? Everyone was like, you gave Dave Njoku $10 million, and they're like, well, it's cheaper than going and buy a free agent. So, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's not bad. I guess Myles Garrett kind of lifts all that draft hype up a lot. We got another one?
There's a few in here. I'm just trying to make sure I know all the picks here before I go any further. So...
Sounds like a fluff piece. That wasn't that good of a draft.
No, it really wasn't. So NFL teams have made 3 or more first-round picks in one draft, right? Mm-hmm. So the first one's the Browns. The next ones are the Giants, 2019. So...
Daniel Jones, unequivocally. No question marks. Maybe a few question marks.
So, okay, so here it is. So what they grabbed was at 17, they picked up Dexter Lawrence. And at 30, they grabbed Andre Baker. But that's only 2. I'm going to do this another time. This is like just me reading.
Like follow up with it.
Yeah, but it's interesting because even if that's the case, I cannot remember personally, maybe comments will sit there and tell us differently, a team that has drafted first in the first round 3 picks or more, and it panned out with all 3 of them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's incredibly difficult to even get those 3 picks. And then you're talking about that 50% hit rate that people seem to have in the NFL draft. Very, very difficult to make that happen. We'll move on, though. Well, actually, let me finish with the Jets.
I think a lot of these have them actually trading out. Sorry.
Of the third first-round pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let me finish with the Jets because it wasn't just their first round. I think when they brought in Breece Hall, there were 2 elite running backs in this draft class. The fact that you spent a high second-round pick to bring in an elite running back, especially as bad as the Jets have been at running the football, I think is a great pick for them, even though it came a little bit earlier than I would have liked to see at 36. Breece Hall has all the talent in the world. I didn't love Jeremy Ruckert, and I've seen everybody under the sun just like loving Jeremy Ruckert, tight end out of Ohio State. To me, this guy is like already kind of unathletic in college. I know he caught a lot of passes at Ohio State, but that doesn't really translate when you're not really an athletic guy in the NFL and you've got these linebackers that are like way faster than you coming up to make coverage plays. To me, this is a blocking tight end. I think that's where he's going to make his bread and butter. He's going to be a blocking tight end in the NFL. Not crazy about that with a third-round pick.
I think there's value in a blocking tight end in the league. I mean, there's people out there there's teams out there that need that. Kansas City's one of them.
But you pay somebody like $1 million a year to be your blocking tight end. You don't spend pick 101 on them.
But you feel good at receiver. You're right. You don't. You maybe pick him up undrafted and then
him turn into the next Travis Kelce. It's just like, okay, whatever.
But there are those special ones out there. There are those special blocking tight ends that do find themselves open in the end zone. I think of like Mercedes Lewis,
right?
Who just somehow finds himself open. But
Jack Doyle,
yeah, Jack Doyle. But the majority of his day is blocking.
I agree. I mean,
100%.
That can happen. Don't love again. If this was a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick, I'd say, hey, this is right about where I want to take a blocking tight end too. A little high for me. Everything else, though, Max Mitchell, I think, is a great offensive tackle. Another guy that people had going inside a lot of top 100 spots. So the fact that Max Mitchell fell all the way to 111, I think tons of value there. They're getting better at the offensive line. Sooner or later, the Jets are going to be good on the offensive line, man. They keep throwing all these picks, spend all this money on them. Like, they're going to have an offensive line sooner or later. And it might be this year.
They should.
I mean, Lake and Tomlinson coming in to play guard. They drafted Elijah Vera Tucker. They have their left tackle, whose name I forgot on the last show, so I haven't learned anything.
We're doing good.
Yeah, they have tons and tons of offensive line just improvement over the past 2 years. This has been one of the position groups that they have said we are getting better at. And even though we haven't quite seen that huge step forward yet, they're not the Colts, they're not the Cowboys yet, where they're just dominating the offensive line. They keep spending picks like this, man. It's going to happen.
George Fant.
No, the other one. Not George Fant. George Fant's a little bit more of a journeyman that probably is going to be in the running with Max Mitchell to get replaced here.
Connor McDormand?
Nope. He's out of
Becton?
Louisville. Yes, Mekhi Becton. Thank you.
They have him actually listed as right.
He's played left tackle.
Well, they have him listed as the right. Of course, this is off-season stuff. Who knows what it's going to change?
And, yeah, I would be shocked if they don't play Becton at left, but that's okay. Regardless,
I like this draft.
You keep spending picks on the offensive line. It gets better.
Yes, I like this draft. You think about the Jets being the last time they were good, they had like Darrelle Revis, right? So maybe Gardner can be something similar like that, have an island out there where you're not going to throw that side of the ball. And then you put weapons around your young quarterback in Wilson. You got yourself a running back out of Hall. You got yourself a receiver out of Wilson to add to the receiving core that you have already set in place. I like this. I think this is a good draft for them. I think this is something that they could definitely grow on. Are they going to fix everything with this draft? Year one? No. This is still a work in progress. Zach Wilson is still a work in progress. I just hope that Jets GM or ownership and fan base can just hold on and give this team a second to grow, because this is still a very young team and still have a lot of like bumps and curves to finally straighten themselves out.
And how do we mess that up? Coaching changes, left, right, and center. As soon as you
fire
draft
everyone
these
you can.
Exactly. Always the best strategy, even when it comes to management. Let me say this, Drew. The Jets, number 4 on my board. This next one, it makes me feel dirty even saying, man. Number 3. And everyone's going to scratch their heads and be like, Jake, what are you talking about, man? Number 3.
How drunk were you?
The Indianapolis, not drunk enough. Because if I was drunk, I'd be like, nah, the Colts suck. But they're coming in at number 3, man. You look at what they had. Picks-wise, no first-round pick. We gave that up. We made the mistake about Carson Wentz. That's in the past. That doesn't come into factor into these grades. The fact of the matter is they went into this draft with what they had, and they still managed to just knock it out of the park, because when you talk about them bringing in guys like Alec Pierce in the second round, they have just vastly improved their team, as I pull it up, with second and third round picks. I mean, what did we say? They don't have enough weapons. So with the second and third pick, they bring in Alec Pierce, quality receiver out of with size and speed out of Cincinnati. One of the guys that made Desmond Ridder a thing, in my opinion. Great guy to pick up. The fact that he fell here all the way to 53, bit of a shock to me. I thought he was going to go a little bit higher. And then you have Jelani Woods. Bit of a project. Was a quarterback 2 years ago, but the guy is 6'7" and a half. Like, realistically, Drew, 6'8". You ever seen a 6'8" quarterback? You have, in Brock Osweiler, but you just didn't realize it. I'm just saying.
I was thinking of him.
When it comes to this kind of size,
he wasn't very good.
His size and athleticism, if you can teach him to play tight end, and that's a big if. I know you don't like to get to the NFL and say, if you can teach him to play the position they drafted him at, then he'll be a good player. But when you talk about physical ability, there is no better lottery ticket than this guy becoming a good tight end with the athleticism and the way he goes up and gets the ball. Drew, it's overused, man, but I got to say it. He's a power forward that goes up and steals the ball away from defenders. The fact that they scrape him away in third, that I don't know.
I actually like tight ends that play basketball.
I agree. I'm just saying, the conversion from quarterback to tight end, bit of a head scratcher. But the fact that they got a guy with the size, speed, metrics, all the way in the third round before anyone else thought to take him, he was one of those guys that I saw at the combine and I said, he's going to be special. The fact that they scooped him up in round 3 just tells you that they're paying attention to what I'm saying in the offseason.
I'm sorry, I'm so distracted. As I'm reading your notes, you have one guy here, Nick Cross, safety out of Maryland. Why did you write everything you said about him in caps?
I wrote
because were you screaming?
Yeah. Editing never and tech support, all the rest of it, never been one of my fortes. Never something I've been strong at. If you've been around the show long enough, you know that's the truth. So that's probably why.
No, I do like this draft. You're missing offensive linemen. I would like to see a little bit more attention to the offensive line. You took one offensive lineman.
Well, but let me say this
about
Bernard Raymond, really quick though. There were a lot of people that thought this was a first round pick. He's older. He had to serve in the Austrian army. Not Australia, Drew. Other half of the world. Austria. He had to
I don't know where that is. I'm just kidding.
He had to give up a couple years to go just look like a badass out there holding the AUG, because I think that's what they use their service rifle, and didn't get a chance to go to college right away. This guy was also a converted tight end, so there's a little bit of worry that he might not be, enough of a guy that to make it at the next level. But going from 260 to 290, 295, he's made that transition already, and he moves like a tight end still. So the fact that you're getting this kind of athleticism, this is the tackle they were looking to replace. This should have been a first-round pick, and they're grabbing him in the third round. So you're telling me, how did a team with no first-round pick jump a team with 3 first-round picks in my rankings? It's when you get value like this that I'm like, man, you just have to. I hate Chris Ballard because he's making the Colts that much better. It's like they shortchange this guy all the time, and he still makes it work. No free agents for you, no draft picks for you. Doesn't matter. Always finds a way to make it work. And hey, Colts fans, I felt like the Titans were going to steamroll them this year. Everybody was saying, oh yeah. And I feel like without all these moves, things are definitely moving a lot closer. Not ready to say they've overtaken them yet, but man, this certainly helps.
Yeah, I still think their receiving core might still hurt a little bit. So looking at their depth chart, they have these rookies that you're talking about. The only one that's actually in the starting position right now is Alex Pierce. That's it.
Sure.
So
how many rookies do you want to start?
So what that means to me is they believe in the veterans they got there, and they're giving this, what you believe is a great draft from the Colts. They're giving them a chance to learn instead of sitting there and throwing. It sounded like I did, but I did not say that. Throwing them into the fire and letting them burn themselves out.
Right.
They're giving this team a chance to win. And something with Matt Ryan that I like, instead of like Carson Wentz, obviously beyond the injury aspect of it all, is I think you still have plenty of time with Matt Ryan that you did have with Carson Wentz. Move that on the page. Anyways, with Matt Ryan is you don't have to win this year. You can win next year. I still think Matt Ryan has a couple more years that are good NFL.
I think so too, but I think Jim Irsay's impatience has become a problem. Because that's why they got rid of Carson Wentz. Let's face it, you don't bring in Carson Wentz and he has one bad year with, let's face it, a roster with no weapons.
It wasn't one bad year. The thing is, like, could he stay healthy? And he was like, I can stay healthy, and then he couldn't stay healthy.
They made him play on, like, multiple sprained ankles, though. It's not like he's not willing. I don't know. When I saw that, and
the whole point is he can't stay healthy, man.
I think he lost to Jacksonville, and Irsay said, you know what? Maybe we don't need you. I really do think that was probably more to do with it. Because if they win that game, I think Carson Wentz is still here. And I get it. It's upsetting to see a fringe playoff team. You have that win and get in situation. Believe me, I've been there with Marcus Mariota. And there's like you have all off season to think about it. But let me say this.
Atlanta's going to find out.
Yeah. No, they're not a fringe anything right now. They're a fringe number one pick already. That's what Atlanta is. I do think they still pulled the trigger too quick, and I think it set them back in this draft because you look at the magic that Ballard has just like spun up here with no first round pick. It's like if he ever walked into like a Jets draft, he wouldn't know what to do with himself. He'd be like, "We're taking the 3 best players off the board." I don't know. I give tons of respect to Chris Ballard. I hope he fails, but every time he doesn't seem to care too much about what I think. Always seems to put together a good roster.
You didn't reach out to him after the draft, let him know what you felt?
I can't, because like if I go in there and say, man, you screwed it up, he's going to be like, all right, I did it.
I did what I wanted. I did what I wanted.
So props to the Colts. I think they absolutely knocked it out of the park. They were my number 3 team, Drew. Let's keep rolling.
That's so crazy.
Talk about that team another team I don't want to talk about. The Chiefs at number 2, man. And there's a gap here. There's a gap between the Colts and the Chiefs, I think, when it comes to talent. Because as much as I love the Colts draft and what they like, the minimalist idea of hey, we'll just make do with what we have. The Chiefs had those first round picks from having dealt Tyreek Hill, and they didn't screw it up, man. In my opinion, when you talk about what they brought in, I know they had to do a little bit of finagling, they had to do a little bit of trading to get ultimately where they wound up being. But the fact that every guy off the board, I felt like was a steal when it comes to Kansas City. When you talk about Trent McDuffie, a guy that I had somewhere around like 10, 11, 12 on my big board going off at 21 because, yeah, I get it. He's not 6'3". Most corners aren't, you know? Yeah. Chiefs are like, we don't care. He stopped people from catching the ball. Never gave up a touchdown in college. You're going to hear that all offseason from Chiefs fans.
It will literally be game 1.
Exactly. He's never given up a touchdown in college, though. Like, fantastic player. I know he doesn't exactly fit their system. We talked about that during the draft show. He doesn't fit exactly what they have done in the past. But good teams adapt.
Yeah.
And I give them tons of credit for recognizing the talent and saying, listen, we'll find a way to make it work with this guy, even though he's not the press man, 6'2", get-in-your-face corner they're used to with a guy like Tre'Davious Ward.
Well, the nice thing about it, even though he's coming out the board at 21, I don't think they're expecting him to be on an island by himself. I think they're expecting him to kind of be that guy that bounces around a little bit. I know we already had that in Snead, but I think Duffy is going to just he's going to float where he needs to float. And one thing that we all know about Chiefs is it's not going to be pretty week 1. It might be pretty week 6. So
a week like 9 this year.
Yeah.
Like it took a little bit longer to start.
A little bit longer. So it's like one of those things where it's like, you like the pick, you like where he's coming from, you like the talent, but does he fit the system? Well, we don't know, because at some point in time, they're going to figure it out and make it work.
Sure, and good coaches say, hey, he doesn't fit the system, but the system changes around the talent that I have. So props to them for doing that. On top of that, George Karlaftis, defensive end out of Purdue, another like fringe top 10 pick for me that they wound up scooping at number 30. Again, the value is just insane. We were talking about 20 spots in the first round that a guy falls. I get it. He doesn't have the measurables, but you know what he does have? The highest win rate in college football when it comes to one-on-ones against offensive tackles. The guy annihilated dudes in front of him. Does that necessarily stack 1-for-1 in the NFL? No, you'll probably see that number go down a little bit. But if he's winning it 35% of the time in the NFL, that's what your team should be at. Okay? If he gets if he gets half of that and he's winning 20% of the time, 22% of the time,
right?
You have a steal and one of the best defensive ends in football. I know he doesn't have the speed, but neither did J.J. Watt. And J.J. Watt just like walks through offensive tackles. So I really see a lot of that same style game in Karlaftis. The fact they got him this late, he won't be J.J. Watt. He's not that good type of athlete. But I think you're going to get, 90%, 95% of that out of a guy that you got at number 30. Kind of, again, the Chiefs every year, Drew, it's like, man, how did they keep doing this? They keep taking these guys that I love. We must, me and your ownership group, man, we just think alike.
Brett Veach knows what he's doing, I guess. You got to believe in the system. You know what's interesting, though, is I think what it shows is regardless of what the media and even our big boards out of the draft, these NFL teams are completely the opposite. It's like they turn off all media and they don't listen to it, and they go straight to the boards and go, okay, what do we like, not like? What kind of style fits our team? What style doesn't fit our team? And there are those teams out there that just seem to say, these are our style of guys, regardless where they fall, we're taking them. And it seems like nowadays that isn't the way you want to go.
No, I agree. And Brad Veach didn't turn all draft boards off. He stole mine. And said, where can I get value with all these picks?
But you know what I'm saying is like, yeah. What I'm saying is you look at some other teams out there that sit there and go, okay, we need this style of player to fit our style of play, and it might not be worth it at that pick, and they draft them anyways.
Right.
And it seems to backfire constantly over and over, especially nowadays. My question when I'm looking at the Kansas City Chiefs board is how many of these rookies are going to be week one starters?
You know what's crazy? I think Darian Kennard might be your right tackle to start.
It's a possibility.
It's going to be a Trey Smith style scenario where nobody saw this coming. And
it's a possibility.
Dude, he is more of a run blocker, and I will say that doesn't exactly fit what you have in mind when it comes to Kansas City and what they've spent. You know, they paid Joe Thuney every dollar that they had in their pocket, it seemed like, to get him to come in to be the best pass blocking guard in football, or one of the best pass blocking guards for him. Same thing with Orlando Brown, a little bit more of a pass blocker than he is a run blocker. He run blocks. He's kind of a balanced guy. Darian Kennard is the freight train that runs you over. And maybe the pass blocking is a little bit of work, but he's 6'7". The dude is a road grader. Like, he moves grown men for a living. So the fact they brought him in, I think he could win that right tackle spot. And you're saying, like, oh, you know, what might be that sleeper pick, or what might be that pick that the Chiefs have taken? I think Darian Kennard, Leo Chenal, I think, is going to win a spot at linebacker. I'm a little less convinced about Brian Cook. Like the guy, don't love the guy kind of thing. But with the departure at safety of Tyrann Mathieu, might find a spot. Who knows whether it's him, McDuffie, whatever. They needed help in the secondary. They got a talented secondary player with him. Every pick you go down the board. Sky Moore, great slot receiver. A guy that might even be able to make it on the outside. Talent, speed in and out of his routes, which is something Tyreek Hill had that is not talked about enough. Not just that he was fast, but the speed in and out of the routes when he made his cuts. Sky Moore has that too. He doesn't have the top end, but he has that cut speed that just generates so much separation that he's open. And if he's got 3, 4, 5 yards of space, Mahomes will figure it out and throw it to him.
Oh, absolutely.
You got Leo Chenal, who's like measurables, so like off the charts when it comes to what he did at linebacker. Strength, speed, range, agility.
It all depends, personally, for my opinion on him, it all depends on Leo's mind for the game, because they're going to put him in middle linebacker. So you have Jermaine Carter Jr. right now is slotted the number one linebacker. I think Leo has every possibility to take him out of that spot.
Oh, and he's a dog, too. Like,
he is a dog.
Mentality-wise, he's the guy that coaches fall in love with.
I love his interview, and it was, I love to hit people. That's what I enjoy doing, is hitting.
Exactly. Couple of the late cornerbacks, Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, whatever. Fayetteville State, another school that I didn't spend a whole lot of time with the tape with. So obviously, but how much of this is relationship? That a coach that's now at Fayetteville State, and he calls you up and says, "Listen, Brett, I got this." Brett Veach, that is, for the Chiefs. I got a line on a guy that nobody's going to be ready for. Turn his tape on, man. Check him out. You never know what you're going to get. I feel like that's how half of these late-round picks probably wind up coming into being, because especially this year, we saw so many small school guys that I'm like, okay, yeah, no, hey, I'm going to have to go watch some stuff on him after the draft, not a guy that I had on my big board.
Well, our defensive backs are an issue. That's the reason why we took 5 draft picks to cover that problem. You also look at what we did during the offseason. We sat there and we went after Lonnie Johnson Jr., DeAndre Baker was re-signed. I mean, this is again where you go, what's our biggest issue? What's our biggest hole in our team? Defensive back's a problem. They spent 5 draft picks to try to take care of this. Took the number 1 pick out of their whole draft to try to solve this issue. You have to be excited about it, and as far as you focus on a problem and you draft to fix it.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about the only team that actually managed to beat the Chiefs when it comes to
on everybody's board. Everybody's board.
And just about everyone is.
Everyone believes this. This is not a surprise by anyone who pays attention to the NFL.
And Ian also says that's New England this year. Go get your guy in the first round or when he's a third rounder. When it comes to going and taking the guy that fits your system. Well, wait till we get to the loser side, because you'll be shocked who's at number 1. Let me talk about the Ravens. Everybody has loved this, and the reason they've loved it is because they had 6 fourth-round picks, and they literally stood there with a dustpan and said, any talent that gets by everybody, we're just taking it, man. We don't care. Kyle Hamilton, maybe a Derwin James clone or Derwin James style safety when it comes to just the versatility, the physicality you don't see at that position. A guy they scooped at 14. They didn't trade up to go get him. They sat still and let one of the best players in this draft fall into their laps. Drew, I had him in the top 5 on my board. He was 5th, but he's still in the top 5.
Yeah.
When you're talking about that high at the board and you have a guy slip to 14, it's always a steal. It happened with Derwin James. Everybody let him fall to, what was it, 18, 17? There's no love for the safety at the top end of the draft, man, and the Ravens were one of those teams that said, good, let him fall into our lap.
Take him.
Exactly. And then the same thing happens. Nobody loves centers. It's not a sexy position.
I mean, I do.
Yeah, exactly, because you're built like one. I'm just playing.
Yeah, no, I am.
It's the mobility. It's the mobility that you have.
That's my knees. I got great knees.
But anyway, that's okay. I'm built like a bench player. I'm built like the punter. Anyway, let's talk about Tyler Linderbaum, because this, again, another top 10 guy. They trade back in at 25 to bring in Tyler Linderbaum, who might be the Quentin Nelson of centers. Like, how? How does this First off, how does it always happen with teams that I hate? Like, why couldn't the Seahawks take this pick? And number 2, why does this stuff always happen to the Ravens? It seems like every time I watch a Ravens draft, they grab all this value that just happens to sink, because I don't want to take a center in the first round. I don't want to go back to my fan base and say I took a center. This guy beat Tristan Wirfs in a wrestling contest in high school. You know how many people did that? 2. Him and some other guy that we don't know. But still, not very common occurrence, Drew.
Well, I was actually the best college alumni or whatever team, college school, that's the word I was looking for, for wrestling.
Going for. Yeah.
And someone like this who comes out of there and plays, it's Iowa. That's my college team. That's the team I root for. They process very big, stout men. If it's not a tight end, it's a lineman. This guy's going to be a stud for about 10 years in Baltimore.
Then they grab David Ojabo. Edge rusher, everyone's saying, he would have been a first-round pick if he didn't tear his ACL or his Achilles. There's some risk here, because I'll say this. He's already a little bit old. He only has played the game for a few years because, he's not I think he was from Africa and then moved to Scotland and then moved to America afterwards. So not like a native football. He didn't grow up knowing football.
So what military was he in?
That I don't know.
Oh.
Not an official one, Drew.
Oh, okay.
One of those, I don't want to speculate about that. But let me say this at the very least with Ojabo. All the speed that you want to see as a pass rusher. I know there's some risk here. There's a chance that because he's as old as he is, he's probably not going to get a good enough grasp on the game to really be an impact player until that first contract comes up. But let me say this about him. He is exactly what you want to see with second-round picks. Those gambles of, hey, if he hits and he's as good as we think he can be, then we have one of the better defensive ends in football, and all of a sudden your team is that much better for it. So the fact they scooped him in the second round, insane value there. Travis Jones at 3, This is a crime, Drew. This is a crime that these guys are falling this late. Quintessential nose tackle that has the speed to actually still rush a pass rusher. The quarterback, I should say. This is the guy that pushes the pocket inside. When you're talking about your quarterback steps up and there's a guy waiting there with open arms to go grab him, that's Travis Jones. The fact they scooped him at 76, just disgusting. Again, the Ravens always seem like they do this. They always take the guys that I want, just like the Chiefs. Like they're just one of those teams that we're on the same wavelength, man. It's not fair.
Richard says, as a Hawkeye fan and a Ravens hater, he says he's broke Harden about the Linderbaum pick.
The question is, which wins out? Do you hate the Ravens more, or do you love Iowa?
We love Iowa.
Wait till they beat the Chiefs in the AFC divisional game because the Titans are cruising to the championship.
Who's playing quarterback?
Lamar for now.
Yeah, until he gets hurt week 3.
Or Kirk Cousins in a couple of years. But anyway, we'll keep moving on. Daniel Falele, first one I was like, his testing was really, really bad, out of the blue. And then he's like, yeah, this is fine. I'll just live with this. So offensive lineman, again, never hurts to take those picks at him. But he was one of those guys that I'm a little less high on. He's still okay. Huge pedigree going into this. And then you see the testing and you're like, what's going on with these numbers, man? What's going on with your bench numbers? What's going on with your 40 time? So, not crazy about it. But there have been good players that don't test well.
Yeah. Definitely been very good players that don't test well. And as much as I love the Combine, and I think the Combine should get more credit than what it gets, it is very hard to come out of your element and test like that. But I think that's why it's so important for players to show they can do it. But that doesn't mean that they can't go on the field with a helmet on and play a lot better.
Exactly. Jalen Armour Davis, cornerback out of Alabama. It's a good pick. Again, you can never have enough cornerbacks. Charlie Kolar, what they did at tight end is super interesting because they went out and get a mauler in Charlie Kolar as a blocker. And then later on in the draft, they scoop Isaiah Likely, who might be the closest thing to a wide receiver that's playing tight end. Both of whom excel at what they do. Now they're kind of one-dimensional. They're not exact. I mean, I guess Kolar had some receptions. He's really, really big and very good at going up and snatching the ball away from players. But he's not outrunning anybody. Isaiah Likely outrunning everybody under the sun. So very interesting. They spent 2 picks at tight end when they're already strong with Mark Andrews there. You can tell that they focused on that. And even though they traded Hollywood Brown away, they didn't go back to wide receiver. They stuck exactly where they were at wide receiver and instead said, let's get better at tight end.
Yeah, but they can do that when you have a quarterback like Lamar Jackson who doesn't throw to the receiver that often.
You love throwing over the middle too. Yeah, you're not trying to throw that sideline route. You want to throw it over the middle and let that guy run with it. Isaiah Likely is the poster child for that.
Yeah.
He was my number 2 tight end coming out. And
I remember that.
Everybody's also kind of crapping on it because he's only 235 pounds, and I know you see that.
He's listed at 240.
Misinformation. I'm telling you, he's 235.
Fake news.
I think he came in at 235 at the Combine, or maybe he came in at 240, but he got up to 240. Don't remember. Drew, it's been a while, and you're talking about very obscure data here. But regardless, he's not a big boy for a tight end. Very, very thin for the position, but with his speed, it offsets it. I remember crapping on the Vikings tight end, whose name I can't think of, out of Alabama. And this is crazy.
Irv Smith Jr.
Thank you. I remember crapping on that pick because it's very similar. And then I was promptly like, wow, you know what? Totally missed here. I think Isaiah Likely is the exact same type of player.
You like Irv Smith Jr.?
Now, yeah. I mean, I'll admit I was wrong. When he came out, I was pretty low on the pick because of his size. But it turns out there's multiple ways to win at the NFL if you're just that good of a freak catching the football.
I mean, okay. All right, I'm not gonna.
If you remember, they spent what was it, a 2nd round pick on Irv Smith?
Yeah, but I'm not gonna crap on him. What did you see out of him?
He got hurt this year. What did I see out of him? He made Kyle Rudolph look like he wasn't any good.
Kyle Rudolph was.
This is recency bias to a T, Drew. He got hurt this year, and we didn't see him. So now we're like, what? Irv Smith can't play? We just haven't seen him, man.
It's not really that way.
They gambled. Look, they gambled on Irv Smith this season when they let Kyle Rudolph walk. He went to the Giants, and he got hurt in preseason. He didn't play, I don't think maybe he played 1 week in the NFL, I don't remember, but he barely played at all. The fact of the matter is, these past couple of years, what you've seen as him out of a second tight end, it's turned me around. And guess what you're getting out of Isaiah Likely? A second tight end who's going to be following Mark Andrews around and just owning everybody when you don't have enough linebackers or safeties to cover these guys.
Okay, so just real quickly here, Irv Smith, all right?
You brought up the numbers. Here we go.
Yes, I did, because I'm still lost on why you said what you said. 2019 was a rookie, okay? 36 receptions, 311 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Not bad for a tight end.
Not bad for a tight end.
I know that doesn't sound good. Not bad for a rookie tight end that takes 3 years to come along.
Right. last year, played 13 games, so he missed 4 games.
Okay.
So we got to give him credit for that.
3 games. 3 games because it was 16 back then.
Last
This was the first. Oh, this past season?
I'm wrong.
That's 2 years ago. That's 2 years ago. So
2
he missed
years
3
ago.
games.
All right. So
Yeah, because he didn't play like at all last year, and I get that.
okay, 3 games missed it, right? Mm-hmm. He had 30 receptions, 365 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. But as the second tight end,
What there goes? Oh, we're good.
the Vikings, when they said, "Hey, Kyle, thanks for all you've done."
No,
but
Kyle's
thank you
gone
anymore."
because of his age. It has nothing to do with
Then why didn't you replace him?
because
Why isn't there another tight end in there?
because you said they're the Vikings.
Oh, okay. Well, I can't argue with that. But let me say this.
We have receivers. We don't need a tight end that's good.
Yeah, but who's out there when you only put 2 receivers? You're not running a. Well, actually, they do run a
I guess what
fullback,
I don't
but
want to I'm throwing the injury out. What I'm saying is, where did you go? Okay, we're good.
in those 350 yards. When you watch Irv Smith, I know the volume isn't there yet, and that's fine. That was supposed to be this year, where he's the guy, right? Mm-hmm. But when you're talking about a second tight end that's putting up 350, 400 yards, and he's doing it in style, and I'll admit with you, Drew, some of this is style points. A lot of this is like when I watch him and he catches the ball and he's wide open, just like blazing past linebackers that shouldn't be covering him. I'm like, yeah, hey, that's not bad. I think the Ravens are buying the same thing. And the only difference is Mark Andrews has a lot bigger headache to cover than Kyle Rudolph. And I like Kyle Rudolph, but Mark Andrews is a headache to cover.
I'm going to say this. Irv Smith's probably not in my top 15 tight ends.
Don't do this to me right now, because I'm going to list them out.
So
We're going to take another hour to talk about who I like.
This is what I want to do. I want to do a beer bet on Irv Smith.
Okay.
What do you see him hitting or doing?
I can't bet on that with the health. Okay, so hold on. Let me get.
We'll throw the health out. We'll throw the health out.
Let me get a rider in here. If he gets hurt for more than 4 games,
it's gone.
This is out
the window.
Okay. Yeah. After that, Irv Smith is an 800-yard tight end. Insane numbers, insane production. If he plays 13 games,
okay,
he's going to get to 800 yards in this new offense.
So Smith is 13 games in. I'm just writing this so I can remember. I'll never remember these scratches. 800 yards.
800 yards.
What we got in touchdowns?
Oh, that's anecdotal. That's year to year. It changes who catches the touchdowns.
Is it like 8?
I'm gonna say 5. I'm gonna say 5.
5.
Okay, but we need a third thing to settle it, because if he catches 10 touchdowns and has like 400 yards, we can't both be right. So give me a third stat. I'll even take games played.
You said 13 games.
Okay, so if he makes it over 13, if he hits 2 of those 3 metrics, if he hits 2 of them, I mean, if he plays like 10 games and puts up those numbers, you're not mad about it, right?
Yeah, he's your number 1 guy, right?
I don't know. I mean, if it's like weeks 1 through 7 that he's out, and he comes back and we like balls out in the playoffs and we go to like the NFC Championship.
Yeah, but then he just missed like 20 games in a row.
Yeah, I mean, not ideal, but
we talk about this all the time. You cannot be a great player or a Hall of Fame player if you aren't out on the field. You can't.
When did I say Irv Smith to the Hall of Fame?
I'm just throwing that out there.
And you're right. But I will say this. When it comes to talent, again, this is tangent. We're really digging here. We're supposed to be talking about if Isaiah Likely's any good for their like 99th, 4th round pick.
You threw some stuff out there that just shocked me, so that's why I was trying to understand.
The moral of the story is you're getting the same type of player for the Ravens to play behind Mark Andrews, but the nitty-gritty of it is if he hits 2 of those 3 metrics, we'll say I win.
Okay.
All right. If he misses, and I'm really not liking my chances here, but I do like Irv Smith, so I'll gamble.
So this is what I think, and I'm not. We'll leave the beer bet as it is.
And you liked Irv Smith coming out. You were the one talking me into it.
I did, because I liked the idea of Kyle Rudolph and Irv Smith being on there, and I thought Irv Smith would be better than what he is. Anyways, regardless, I think this is what it came down to. I think it came down to the fact that the Vikings looked at their team and go, Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen are way better than what we thought they were going to be, and we have decided that a tight end is not important to our team. And then they let Kyle Rudolph go because Kyle Rudolph was on a contract year where he wanted to make more money. And they're like, you're not valued at that position to us, regardless of where you are. I say it's age. So they sit there and go, okay, we'll keep Irv Smith. Maybe he's not perfect, but we're going to go ahead and keep him and move forward with him. But when they realize, okay, we're missing that position, then they go off and draft. Or they go out and they I don't know. I say that. I don't know if the Vikings draft. Did the Vikings draft tight ends this year?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure they didn't. If they did, it's just a guy, because that's what this draft was actually full of, is just a guy. except for maybe Trey McBride and Isaiah Likely and Jelani Woods. I liked all three of them. But they did, in the 7th round, they took Nick Muse out of South Carolina. So, Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame watch.
But that's what I'm saying. I mean,
this, like most years, there just wasn't
if they realized that tight end was so important to them and they only have Irv Smith and they didn't go out and draft one, but they did. I mean, maybe they decided that position's not that important.
I don't know, Drew. When you spend a 7th round pick, I'm not reading between the tea leaves like, oh, we don't like Irv Smith, so let's go and take a 7th round tight end and expect him to really take.
He's not even on their roster.
Nick Muse.
It's
going great. It's probably because they haven't signed him yet. It might be because there's no contract yet. Maybe. I'm trying to give him the benefit.
It's cool, dude. They got Zach Davison because we all know who that is.
Yeah. So major home run there at tight end. Next Hall of Fame. And watch him like really be good and be like, we saw it all the time. Look at the tape.
Hey, that being said, I hope Irv Smith has 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns.
I
can sit there and go, I told you they should have drafted him.
I want to talk about one thing and then we'll run through the losers. Because I don't want to keep you all night. I don't want to keep everybody all night. But I will say this: why did the Ravens take a 4th round punter? And they weren't the only ones. There were 2 4th round punters this year, and there was a 6th round punter. Is that just? Can we debate tactics a little bit here when it comes to the draft? Because if you get a generational punter, and I don't know that they did. I did like their pick. And let me pull it right back up because I got a little distracted there. I'm sorry. But they did take Jordan Stout. I do like Jordan Stout for his accuracy. But when you're talking about a 4th round pick.
Did you put Sam
Koch
ice cream?
I think it's actually Koch. I did. You remember I said I used speech to text? And speech to text still got a long way to go.
I didn't know they had an ice cream flavor out.
Yep. Is
that his favorite?
I'll ask him.
When you're talking about punters, I guess the question is, what's your favorite ice cream?
And is your ice cream a 4th round pick? Because is that too high?
Yes. No.
But if you got like the best punter?
Like, what team was that? They got that stud of a punter. Oh my gosh.
I mean, Andy Lee was like the guy for a long time in punting. Brett Kern here in Tennessee. Probably past 4 or 5 years, one of the best punters in football, if not the best. So there is value in it, but is there 4th round worth of value in it? Would you take like a Hall of Fame punter, Drew? Let me ask you this. We'll just round it out. We won't even ask if this is a good pick. I don't want to like crap on Jordan Stout's draft pick because I'm sure he's done everything he needs to do to make it to this level. But let me ask you this.
That guy.
If you could have...
The Bills.
Oh, Ariza. Yeah, he's good because he kicks it a long way. This kid, Stout, is like the leader in like burying people really deep. Ariza averaged 51 yards in punt or something, which
that's
is
what you need in Buffalo.
Insane. Yeah, but they got him in the 6th round. Is my point. So, but taking the long way around it like we usually do. Let's say you could have the best punter in all of football, right? For a generation, maybe not all time, but for a generation. What pick do you spend on him? What pick is too high that you're like, man, that pick number 3 in the draft was too high to take the best punter to ever play the game?
That's so hard because it's a rotating system consistently. So it's like if every other position has a legit starter and you're talking about drafting backups, I got no issue with a 3rd round draft pick.
Okay, you're building a team. Your first pick in your expansion draft is a punter. Okay?
You sign a punter out of somebody else's offseason.
See, I almost think that would be better because, if your team's going to be bad and you're an expansion team, I need that punter. We're going to be punting a lot.
Yeah, you pick the best kicker out of somebody else's off-season trash.
Yeah,
and I say that respectfully because Kansas City does that. They have Buckner, and that was.
But that's a kicker. He's scoring.
But hold on, that was Carolina's quote unquote trash out of their offseason. They're like, we're not going to sign this guy.
Okay, but that's
and they went off,
and it's a little different because your kicker is going to be your leading scorer every season.
Right.
He's going to be the guy that puts up the most points, and
you could do that with punters. The punters are out there too. They're letting punters go. You don't just have a punter. Even if you have Andy Lee or Brett Kern, you bring in another punter to push him.
Sure. I agree with that. To me, 4 is just rich, man. 4 is just rich.
I said 3.
You're talking about 130 here. That is rich. I don't know. If it was kickers and it was Justin Tucker, I'd say spend a 2nd round pick on him. I wouldn't freak out. He's going to kick so many 60-yard field goals, it's going to wind up making itself worth. But for a punter, he's not putting a single point in the board.
If you knew you were getting Tucker, you'd probably give a first-round pick.
What?
First-round pick for Tucker.
Maybe like 28. Maybe, I don't know that go higher than
it's
that.
still a first-round pick.
Yeah, it is. I think I could go
that
up
was
to
like
first. I could go up to first. If I knew he was going to be that good, and I'm getting him like coming out of college.
It's kind of like what the Tampa Bay did with that one guy. That guy worked out.
With not Cairo Santos. He has a Hispanic last name, and you're killing me, dude.
Does it matter? He doesn't even play in the NFL anymore.
I know.
He literally missed
all-time great.
He literally missed a field goal, and it crushed him.
Rightfully so. He missed a lot after that, too.
Yeah, but
he didn't just kick once and was like, I'm never doing that again. He missed a lot. Robert Aguayo.
Yes.
Roberto Aguayo. That's what it was.
Yes. That's Aguayo for sure.
Yes.
Second round.
Yeah. Again, it's a different position, man, because a kicker puts points on the board. When your kicker misses that game-winning field goal, everybody hates it. Like, kicker is the least valuable position until you don't have one. And then you're in DEFCON 1. The Titans have been there for like 3 years. Like, where they're kicking like 60%.
You guys love ex-Kansas City.
We do. We're just waiting for you to move on from Butker. So
it's not going to happen. We're going to keep him around.
Keep him around. Let me say this. For a punter, it's just a bit rich. And we'll move on. I'm going to crush some of these, Drew, so we can get out of here when it comes to these bad draft classes.
If you don't, it's going to take me longer to get beer because I have to walk up the stairs.
Okay. Rapid fire then. Number 5. Let's talk about who screwed it up when it came to drafting in 2022. The Giants. And everyone's
no way.
What? Because I love their first 2 picks. I know. I know what you're saying.
No one said that.
Shocker. Well, I did. I mean, I like Caleb Von Thibodeau.
So now you're saying it.
So here's the thing. How do you start this well? You draft Evan Neal, who might be the best offensive tackle in this draft. Regardless, he's in the top 3. And then you draft Caleb Von Thibodeau right before that at 5. And then after that, like you have a second-round pick, you have 2 thirds, 2 fourths, 3 fifths, and a 6th. And literally everybody on there, I'm like, man, bums, man. They killed their first 2 picks. But when you have 5 and 7, it's kind of expected. Like, you kind of can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Unless you're Jacksonville taking Trayvon Walker number 1 overall. But I digress. Let me say this.
So, okay, real quickly then.
And even that isn't like so bad that you're like, man, they didn't take a punter over number 1 overall, you know?
But real quickly with that though, I mean, I get it. You're talking about the New York Giants, and New York Giants need a lot of help. Mm-hmm. A lot of help. But if you get legit 2 starters out of this draft for the next, 8-10 years.
It's still a failure because of the picks that you had. And this comes back to the value equation, Drew. Again, if you had like your standard picks, if you had a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, and you got 2 starters, I'd be like, yeah, okay, not bad. But here's the thing. They had 2 firsts. Not just 2 firsts. They had 2 top 7 picks in this draft. And I like both of them. I like them both a lot. But after that, you have pick 43 in the second round. You have pick 67 in the third. You have pick 81 in the third. All those guys should be contributors from day one. If you're getting a top 100 pick, the guy should be playing some kind of role in your team from day one. Then you have 2 fourth-rounders, which are like the best darts you're going to throw. You have 3 fifth-rounders, which that's not the best. It's not marquee picks, but fifth-rounders, again, better than 6th, better than 7th. That's where you really start to close out the draft. Is like once you get out of the 5th round, you're kind of just like closing your eyes and hoping these guys work out. 5th round, you're still kind of picking some guys. So when you're talking about Wan'Dale Robinson, what should have been like a 5th round wide receiver that's only going to play the slot, like they looked at Kadarius Toney and said, we need that skill set, but we don't want it to be that guy with his attitude. So they just like, well, screw it, Wan'Dale Robinson.
So do you throw this under the bus as just a GM in his first year? It's not Gettleman no more.
I know, but how did you become a GM if you're, dude? Everyone's like mocking this guy in like the 4th and the 5th round, and 2nd round comes around. Let me just go grab him.
That guy from Kentucky, he seems like a stud.
Everyone does their own evaluations. We talked about it.
Yes.
It's
people
their
fall
guy.
in love.
But I think the problem is when you get suckered into saying, this is the role I need to fill in my offense, and I don't care who it is or how talented he is, I'm taking that guy because of that, you run into bad things. And I think they're upset at Kadarius Toney. They couldn't trade him. And they said, let's go out and get somebody who has a similar skill set, even though he doesn't, but close to that, and we'll go take Wan'Dale Robinson. Don't hate the player, hate the spot. And that's where the Giants are at here. On top of that, Josh Izudnu, guard out of North Carolina. I don't think he's a bad player, but I don't think he's a guy that you should have been spending the 67th pick on. He's a guy that you probably spend a 5th or a 6th round pick, and I say, hey, good job. Cordell Flott out of LSU. He's not Derek Stingley. Let's just say that. Okay, maybe we'll see, and I'll probably wind up having to bite my tongue on all this stuff. Like these clips will come back up where I'm like just bashing all these draft picks. But Drew,
Giants,
you go down
12
this list.
games next year.
Daniel Bellinger, Dave Belton, Micah McFadden, DJ Davidson, Marcus McKeithen, Darian Beavers. Until you get to Beavers out of Cincinnati, name me one of those guys that should have been before 5th round.
I think they got good value out of Belton.
I don't. You like him because he went to Iowa, but I think this is like a 5th, 6th, 7th round like roll of the dice.
They got him. They got him in the fourth round.
Yeah, so they reached. Seriously though, I mean everybody on this list, it's like they killed their first 2 picks, and then they said we don't care about what anyone else thinks. We're smarter than everybody else. When it's like you guys have been winning like 4 and 5 games in the past few years.
12 games. You got it with your boy.
I know, and I like Daniel Jones. Is this helping Daniel Jones?
No.
Yeah. Is Joshua Zuku going to start and turn around that guard position day 1 for Daniel Jones like he needs?
It's a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, I might go around there and turn around the guard position for Daniel Jones. That's a possibility.
No, you won't.
Like, there's some universe.
The first practice, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
All right, keep trashing more teams. What's your next team?
After that, the Cowboys. Like, we're going to be spending some time in the NFC East here, Drew. The Cowboys. Worse than that. Don't love Tyler Smith. I feel like he's overdrafted. People fell in love with the run blocking, but his pass blocking, especially coming out of Tulsa, like, you should be owning these guys. Like, it's Tulsa. You should be owning everybody you go up against. There's a lot of question marks in his pass blocking, a lot of question marks in his fundamentals, his footwork. A lot of teaching's got to go into this. And I think he's probably going to wind up playing guard instead of tackle, which, because Connor Williams left, they need both right guard and right tackle. So not the end of the world if that happens. Just don't love the spot. This is a 2nd-round pick. I think they scooped a little early. Not crazy about it. After that, Sam Williams, a lot of people not loving him. Again, when the athleticism isn't there. I know he had some production out of Ole Miss, but when the athleticism isn't there, it's hard to see how a guy is going to translate in the NFL. It's why you don't see him usually go at pick 56. Now, in the Cowboys' favor, they still have DeMarcus Lawrence there. They still have Micah Parsons, who is probably going to play a lot of edge rushing snaps for them, so he doesn't need to come in and be the guy from day 1. But this is one of those picks that it's like Jerry Jones fell in love with a guy. Jerry Jones saw him on some tape, and he's got some production. But you look at the measurables, and you're like, is he going to have those productions? Is he going to produce it for the Cowboys? I don't know. Time will tell. Another guy that this is like, again, a 3rd or a 4th round pick for me.
I'm on a website just looking at draft picks and them rating it, and it's funny that you have these as your bottom 5, and they have the Dallas Cowboys at the top 6.
Okay, let's talk about some gamesmanship here, because I need people to read my article, and there's a lot of Cowboys fans, and you love to hear everybody tell you when your team's doing well, right?
Oh, yeah.
And if we were like that, Drew, if we were hucksters, we would come out every year. It would be Cowboys in our top 5, Steelers in our top 5, Packers in our top 5.
We don't do that.
We don't do that, as it turns out.
I do for the right amount of money.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you, you said it was $5 in the mail. We'll tell you the Cowboys are the best draft on anybody.
$5?
I do like Jalen Tolbert, so I don't want to crap totally on this. But again, when you got to get to the 3rd round before you're like, hey, I kind of like what you did there. I
see what you're saying. You don't like the players. You don't like the value of the player that you're getting, but I like the position choices. I mean, they're not getting a punter in the 3rd round like you don't like.
Sure.
They're focusing on the offensive line where they definitely need help at. They're focusing on defensive end, where they definitely need some players there. The wide receiver, they lost one. They're going to add one in, but they're not worried about it because they feel like CeeDee Lamb is their number 1. I mean, there's a lot of... If you look down that board and you could look at it and go, they could have gone a lot worse than that, I would think they could have gone a lot worse than that.
I don't hate Jalen Tolbert. I don't hate Damone Clark out of LSU. I think they did okay with those picks, especially Clark. I feel like that's right about where you want to be taking him. I know some people are really high on him for some reason because he has like crazy athletic traits, but like the attitude, everything else isn't there.
LSU was just terrible last year.
Yeah, so don't hate those picks, but everyone else, again, you look at these picks, and it's like you had the picks, and this is what you came away with when there were guys like the Colts were like nabbing up like better players like after you picked. And this is why. This is why the Colts and the Ravens and teams like the Chiefs wind up having good draft classes and ones that I like because they take the guys that when the Cowboys don't take them, fall to them. So I give them a lot of credit. Again, Cowboys, number 4 on the losers list for me.
Well, there's a lot of people that disagree, I guess.
And they're welcome too. And this doesn't – the Cowboys have a good enough roster. They're not going to immediately be trash overnight because of it. But if you have 2 or 3 of these drafts, bad things tend to happen to you. So not crazy about it.
Now, to a team that –
also in the NFC West.
I also agree with is it not a very good draft. But this is actually my second favorite team in the NFL. Looking like trash.
Well, Jahan Dotson is a bit interesting. It's kind of a head-scratcher when you see where he was taken. A lot of people, again – the size, is he going to be big enough and is he going to be athletic enough to play in the outside of the NFL? We don't know. When you take a guy at 16, you kind of need that. You don't want to take a slot receiver at 16 because so many guys can play in that spot because it's easier. Even a lot of star receivers, when you put 3 receivers out on the field, like to play in the slot because there's so much more that they can do. And I don't want to crap on Jahan Dotson too much because I don't hate him as a prospect. But this is pick 45, not pick 16.
Can we just admit one thing about Ron Rivera that he's good at? That's drafting one good player out of a draft.
Yeah, well.
But all other 8, 6, 5, 12 of them are all not going to be that great.
I mean, Fedarian Mathis, I read a thing that he was watching the NBA playoffs because he's there's no way I'm going on day 2.
That's true. That's hilarious.
I wasn't in the room with him, but I heard he was watching the NBA playoffs, and then just he probably had his phone on silent or whatever. Had to ring through 3-4 times before he picked it up. Really, Washington? Oh, what? Oh, hey,
I want to be a commander.
Yeah, I do now. Yeah.
No, I'm serious though. If you go back and you look at Ron Rivera, it seems like he could pull out one great player out of the draft, and the rest are just okay.
Is it Sam Howell? Because I will say,
I don't know.
If I've been saying positive things about all these guys here at the bottom, it's getting Sam Howell in the 5th round when some people had him as their best quarterback, I don't think is a bad thing. I mean, I think it's okay to have a guy challenge Carson Wentz, and he's not much of a challenge if it's the 5th round, but getting that kind of value, why not take a look-see in the 5th round instead of some of these other teams? Going 3rd, 1st if it's Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. Are we trying to find positives out of this?
I mean, that's all. I don't hate Brian Robinson. He's not a 3rd-round running back, but I don't hate Brian Robinson. He's a power back out of Alabama that is the guy that you put in when you need 2 yards. He's like Thomas Jones, but less good.
Less good.
Same deal. It's hard going too hard on these guys because somebody will come out of the woodwork and they'll be taping me being don't like him. He's trash.
Worst pick ever.
But hey, this is why you watch us because we're willing to take these hard line stances on some of these guys and just tell you what we actually think about it. I won't rag on Washington too much. Again, the value just did not match what they picked. Pretty much all the way down the board. Did not match what they picked.
If Robinson pans out as that goal line kind of runner and you have someone to match up with Gibson, and obviously you have a third down back and McKissick, I mean, that's not a bad pick.
In the 3rd round, I mean, you can get that guy 5th, 6th. I mean, this could have been Tyler Algiers. This could have been guys later that have a similar skill set. He just didn't go to Alabama. And for whatever reason, they have a hard-on for everybody that went to Alabama.
Well, they got Carson Wentz. Don't worry about it.
I mean,
everything's going to turn out to be great.
Like I said, Fedarian Matthews, probably a 4th-round D tackle. And they were you know what? We have had all the success taking these D tackles out of Alabama. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, can't go wrong.
Obviously, they didn't have success or they would be drafting there.
Let me talk about the Saints next at number 2. Because I'm going to crush the Saints a little bit. And it's not because of the guys they took, but it's because everything they gave up to get here. They traded next year's 1st round away to even work their way back in. They traded up again to go out and get Chris Olave. Yeah, they needed wide receivers. We all said that, right? Everybody under the sun said the Saints need wide receivers.
They need more than they got.
Yeah, so the Saints have this game plan of we're just mortgaging the future. It doesn't anything I have tomorrow, I'm going to sell today to try to get better. And when you have Jameis Winston at quarterback, Drew, why? Why? I just don't understand it. And this is why they're number 2 on my worst draft list, because not because of the guys they took, but where they took them. I mean, Alontae Taylor was probably a little high for coming out of Tennessee in the 2nd round. They took him because of the speed. He runs a 4.29 or a 4.3 40. Fast corner. Not really good at stopping people from catching the ball, but he's a fast corner.
Maybe you teach him to stop the ball.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you're banking on.
Yeah.
But so that's what his college coach said. I don't want to bang on Alontae Taylor because again, 4th round, I love this pick. Maybe even late 3rd, I'm like, okay, I see it. 2nd,
49th pick overall.
yeah, why not? Okay.
They could have drafted literally 4 receivers and 1 offensive tackle, and I've been like A+.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I think that while we're trying to focus on some positives, right? We're not trying to steamroll everybody here. I felt like Trevor Penning wasn't too much of a reach. I feel like that's probably about where he needed to go at offensive tackle. People soured on him. Like, people were talking about him being the 4th, like, top-tier offensive lineman early in the process, and then they were like, I just turned the tape on. He can't pass block. And he went to, like, Northern Iowa. Not Iowa, Drew. Northern Iowa. Yeah. So I do like Trevor Penning. I like him in this spot. I don't hate it. There's some value here, but the Saints gave up the farm. They had 5 picks this year, and then they gave up their first next year. And they got, like, Ohio State's, like, 3rd wide receiver. And I like Chris Olave, but let's be honest. He's probably, like, number 3 on their list. Well, they got Trevor Penning who can't pass block. They got Alontae Taylor. They got Alontae Taylor out of Tennessee that can run with receivers but can't stop him from catching the ball.
He can tackle.
Yeah.
After giving up 30 yards. That's important.
There just hasn't been a depth pick. Like, DeMarco Jackson and Jordan Jackson they don't excite me.
Maybe they just like the last name Jackson.
I know. It's like last year with Michael Carter, right? Yeah. With the Jets. Okay, let's talk about losers. Let's round it out. Patriots, man.
Oh, man. You're upsetting people.
Was there a surprise here?
Are you upsetting people?
No, I think everybody under the sun has read this for 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
The Patriots reached on everybody that they took.
Belichick lost a step?
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's smelling his own farts a little bit, Drew.
But that being said, I mean, you know.
They'll all wind up being great, and I'll be like,
somehow,
Belichick's a genius.
I mean, he went to the playoffs last year.
Is he going to go next year if he keeps taking guys like this? Like, you traded Shaq Mason, like one of the best guards, and you took a 26-year-old Cole Strange out of Chattanooga? When was the last first-round Chattanooga player? I know.
Great city, by the way.
T.O. went to Chattanooga, right? I think,
yeah. Yeah, T.O. did.
Wasn't a first-round pick, was he?
Yeah, he went to 49ers first-round pick.
Okay, all right. Well, it's been a while.
Been a while.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this. I like Cole Strange, but I like him in the 4th round.
I want to double-check that, but I'm pretty sure he did.
I like Cole Strange, but I like him in the 4th round. Again, he's old. He's dominated bad competition, but at least he's dominated. That's what you kind of want to see. But again, why make this pick here and not trade back with somebody? Just go get like an extra 6th-round pick and trade back to the 3rd round and still get your guy. If that's how much you like him, everyone would crush you for the trade, but you'd still get your guy in the 3rd round. Literally, Sean McVay came out after the first day of the draft and was like, I wish we didn't spend all that time scouting this guy so we could draft him in the 4th. Like, yeah, I didn't get this pick. I'll be honest with you. Taquan Thornton, they looked at the board and said, well, we didn't have any speedy wide receivers. Let's just go draft the fastest 40 time we can find. Doesn't matter if he can catch the ball or not.
All right.
Another reach out of Baylor. Both of those picks, I wound up giving them Fs when I graded this out.
Oh, 3rd round. 3rd round.
Yeah. See, I knew
3rd round.
Yeah. I was like, am I wrong? I didn't want to sound stupid, but I'd be like, I don't think so.
When you're a stud like that, it's like you came out of the 1st round, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you
exactly. Did. But, yeah, no, I mean, you look at the rest of this draft. They took Marcus Jones, who's 5'8", at cornerback. Like, I said I don't care about size that Trent McDuffie's like 5'11". And now we're talking about a 5'8" corner that is probably like 185 pounds at best. I don't know.
That's like me, but minus 60 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he might be a return man at the next level, Drew. I mean, because he is a special return man coming out of Houston. But you're taking return specialist with pick 85. What are you doing? I don't get it. I really don't. And then you take Jack Jones right after that, a guy who's also undersized, in trouble with the law, commercial burglary charges, because he broke into a restaurant after hours.
They're not worried about that.
Yeah, I guess not. 170 pounds in the NFL? Drew, I'm 170 pounds. You know what an NFL player would do to me?
A little chubby.
Yeah, no. You know what an NFL player would do to me? Even if it was like a cornerback. I don't want a 170-pound receiver. Remember all the crap we gave the Eagles for taking Devontae Smith when he was like 165 pounds or 168? And he had like the best career at wide receiver at college football. One of the best wide receiving careers. Like, he was the stud at Alabama. And we were like, man, can you trust him at 160? Jack Jones is 170 pounds. What? Do you know what? Drake Jackson's going to rip him in half.
Tell us how you really feel.
I don't hate the running backs they took. I don't hate Bailey Zappi in the 4th round. I don't hate Pierre Strong.
You realize that all these players that they drafted will probably find the field at some point.
And they'll probably, like, Bailey Zappi will be the next, like, Brady, and I'll be like, I saw it coming. No, I won't say that, but, yeah, I mean, we've been crushing Belichick like this for a while. It's never been this bad. But everybody has said worse. Belichick doesn't seem like he knows what he's doing and that he falls in love with his guys, and then it works out.
I was going to ask you this. Do you think that the Patriots have Belichick has fallen in love with the nostalgia of what he is?
Yes.
So that he can find
smelling his own farts, exactly.
Gems, the late round picks, because you don't, I mean, if you look back at it.
For a gem in the early rounds.
Well, yeah, but back in the day, they would trade up a little bit. They'd take all these like late round picks, they kind of bundle them up and push them up a little bit, go in a 3rd, 4th round. Mm-hmm. They'd do that. If anything, I mean, yes, they traded.
Okay, but when you take like Gerard Mayo out of Tennessee and everyone's like, oh, I thought he was a 2nd round pick and the Patriots traded up into the 1st to take him, it's like, okay, maybe he knows what he's doing. You're scooping like 4th round guards in the 1st round. Like, how many teams won't take a guard in the 1st round at all?
There's got to be something about him. There's got to be something about Cole Strange that just
he owned everybody at Chattanooga. I mean, I'll say that he owned everybody like 6 steps below the NFL.
Tugged at those heartstrings, like Belichick.
Does Belichick have heartstrings? Like if there was a cold, dead-hearted NFL coach, yeah.
His kids,
I guess
his son looks like a worse than he is. I was trying to be nice there.
Yeah.
You ever seen that guy stand on the sideline?
I haven't.
Son? You never. You
Apple
have?
Doesn't fall. No, I haven't. Apple doesn't fall from the trees.
Dude, my God, you got to go back. Yeah. Literally, type in like Belichick's son on sideline faces. It's hilarious. That guy's got some faces. It's so weird. It's so weird.
Okay. Should I continue? Should I keep like crushing the Patriots, or does everyone get the message that nobody liked the Patriots draft? Because nobody liked the Patriots draft.
Yeah, nobody.
I don't know that the Patriots walked away like, "Hey, we got them.
We did it. We did it, guys."
Maybe they did. I mean, Belichick might have been. That's the thing. All these guys were crapping on him. They'll wind up being good like 4 years down the road.
Probably are.
Yeah, we'll be like, I don't even remember Cole Strange being drafted. So, shout out to them.
Their 6th round draft pick, Jim.
There is something to be said about sticking to your own gut and going with the guys that you like. And they did that.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll see how it pans out, because we talked about like guys like Justin Fields not really having a whole lot done for him this offseason. I don't think you're setting Mac Jones up for a whole lot of success here. Trade Shaq Mason for a 5th round pick. One of the best guards in football. Spend your 1st round pick on a replacement. Oh, by the way, he bullied some kids at Chattanooga, and he's 25.
Hey, it's all about this year, right now. Nah, I'm kidding. I don't know.
1st round guard is all about this year.
That's
okay. Okay.
That's the thing about like NFL drafts. It's so hard to sit there and go, "Oh, this is a great draft," and it wasn't. I talk about this to you a few times where I talk about the last time Kansas City had the 1st pick in the NFL draft. I was like, no one was good in that draft. And then we go through it, I'm like, oh, yeah, okay.
Oh,
that
Cole Strange. Like,
oh, that guy was
NFL All-Pro.
That guy was kind of good. Oh, okay, yeah, that guy was kind of good.
I like the running backs they took. I mean, Pierre Strong is like James White 2.0. That's going to happen again. And they got him in the 4th round. Like, this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about at running back. So that was a good pick. But, like, if your highlight of the draft is like, hey, we did all right in the 4th round and we had picks before that, okay.
Well, Tom Brady.
Don't hate Bailey Zappi when you're talking about like the best replacement for Mac Jones, who everyone says the big weakness is the arm strength. Like Bailey Zappi can't throw 50 yards, but he's accurate inside that. Like he throws a laser inside that. I mean, you're going to be playing the same type of football.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. I mean, to me, Bailey Zappi, when I watched him, I said this is Gardner Minshew with less physical talent. Ooh. And if you go back and watch from like 4 years ago, I was like, Gardner Minshew is like a very good rhythm passer that manages to make a lot of things happen. I mean, he threw for like 5,200 yards at Washington State.
Yeah.
Like, I think you're getting this. Bailey Zappi set NCAA records in passing because they threw like 75 yards.
I thought he came from North Carolina.
No. Minshew was Washington.
Oh, Washington.
Yeah.
Who came out of
State? I don't know, NC State.
Not NC, North Carolina.
Mitch Trubisky.
What did you just say?
Gardner Minshew is what I meant to say.
Oh, yeah.
Trubisky, 'cause I didn't mean
I mixed the
Trubisky.
two up. That was me.
If I did say, I didn't mean that. I meant Minshew. But same kind of player, but just less physically talented than the guy that's not a starter because of his physical talents.
I like Gardner Minshew.
I do too, and I'm kind of shocked that people were calling Mitch Trubisky before calling Gardner Minshew.
Yeah.
I would have given up a 6th-round pick to the Eagles to let him be my starter instead of signing Mitch Trubisky to 2 years, $15 million. Anyway. I think that does it, man. Yeah. I think that does it. That was
getting attacked by bugs.
That was a lot. We hopefully weren't too negative, but there were some negative drafts here.
Yeah, there always are. I appreciate everybody who stayed along. I feel off. I'm on a minute. I'm a little off today.
This is the part where you read the names out and you say, "Hey, thank you guys."
Yeah, I know. Thanks.
You're welcome, man. I put a lot of time and effort into this, so
I
know you did too.
You did a great job.
I know you did too.
Really, dude. Can we just call this Sports Around the Bar with Jake?
No.
Just kidding.
No. Of course not. But what we can do is hope that next year's draft is a little bit better because this year didn't have the energy to me. I hate to say it. It did not have the energy.
It's because you don't have that number one quarterback out there or that amazing defensive end that's like, this guy's going to change the NFL with the way he plays.
Next year's about to be different. We're going to have great receivers. We're going to have the best running back draft. We're going to have some quarterbacks. They won't be the best ever, but we'll have some quarterbacks.
That's how I feel about time Kansas City had the number one pick with Eric Fisher. It was like, there's no one here to be excited about.
I know.
And we had the number one pick, and I'm like, really? And yeah, Eric Fisher helped us win a Super Bowl, so I'm like,
okay, I guess.
Yeah, you're good, bro, but see you later, you're gone.
Jake around the bar with Drew.
There you go.
Jerk around the bar. Anyway, that comes after the show.
No, it does not.
I agree. We're getting back on track after this season. I feel like last year was about as strong as we've seen in a decade.
Yeah.
And then I feel like next year won't be that good, but it'll be close. It'll be good. Offense is back. I feel like all the offensive players this year, there weren't this receiving core. I said it multiple times. I'm going to say it again. It felt like a bunch of number twos. Next year, we are getting some studs. Yeah. We are getting the best running back draft maybe in the past 20 years. There are. We'll talk about that another time. There are so many running backs. We're getting some good quarterbacks. If we get the guys that come out that should be, there'll be some of the guys that fall off. There'll be some of the guys that come out of the woodwork we didn't expect. I don't know about defense. I haven't gone that far into the tape. There are some great players that'll be coming out for sure. But this next year's offense is going to make up for the kind of gap in talent we saw this year.
Well, there is one thing for sure about drafting in the NFL is when there is a down year, the next year makes up for it.
Exactly.
It's always been
almost
that way.
always. Almost always. I agree.
Yeah.
And next year hopefully should.
Guys, thank you so much for sticking around with us. Richard, you're the man. I love it. Jake around the bar with Drew is hilarious. Bees, Martavius, Richard again, Ray, Frank, Bruce, Kent. Guys, face.
I think there were a couple names that I read off that again didn't show up on your side of things.
I don't know what's going on with Facebook, but I appreciate every comment, like, and share.
That's always going on with Facebook.
Yeah, it means the world to us, and we appreciate it. And thank you for sticking around with us. And we should be back next Tuesday. There's nothing in the way of stopping that from happening. So.
Absolutely. Hopefully, we'll be at our regular time of 4:30.
We hope.
Absolutely. We hope to see you guys all then. Until that point, we hope that you guys have a great week, and we will see you next time.
See you.